welcome to Nothing But the News, Episode 2. I'm your host, Ty Bermundo, and today I want to start off with a post I saw and some comments. And this is showing you a big double standard I'm seeing this week. So there was a post, it was from CBS News, and it says, current aide accuses Cuomo of sexual harassment. I've covered this last week. I also covered this in a daily rundown. And there's comments. They're saying, oh my gosh, he stared at her. This is all a Trump bull crap put up job. And I'm not going to judge your opinion. If you think it's a conspiracy theory, that's fine. But this is where I have an issue. Is someone went out and said, oh my God, I guess I'm sexually harassed every time I go out. Men look at me, some call me beautiful. Others say, hey, how are you doing? Many tell me I got a great body or nice eyes, so I'm going to report all these for men sexually harassing me. And this was as a complete satire, as a complete joke. Yet, a big story this week is the 97%. I'm going to go fact check that right now. If you haven't heard of the 97%, you might live under a rock. This hashtag went viral on Instagram and TikTok with over 1 million posts on both platforms. It comes from this UK survey right here, and the main one I want to highlight is the only 3%, which is the second bullet point. Only 3% of women aged 18 to 24 had told us they had not experienced any of the behaviors we asked about. And common misconceptions are 97% of these victims are raped. And I really just want to go over the disinformation spread and see if we can validate or invalidate this article. And before we get into this, I just want you to know I'm doing this not to bring down women in any way. I'm mostly doing this to correct false information that's being spread. And the first false information I can give you is this survey was from a UK survey of 1,089 people, whereas Britain has 33 million people in the country. So it is pretty safe to say that this survey does not represent every single person in the world. The survey comes from this website, the unwomenuk.org, and they have a page 9 of 28, that says this: however, there can be differences in official and commonly used definitions of sexual harassment. Although the consensus is one of unwanted behavior, the specific acts included vary. From unwanted conduct of sexual nature, which has its purpose or effect of creating an intimate, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment, to anything that makes you uncomfortable. Most definitions necessarily refer to the subjective experience of the individual concerned, which was the individual made unsafe, humiliated, or intimidated. These differences could assist in explaining why certain acts of sexual harassment are so frequently and unreported. A unanimous definition and understanding of sexual harassment could be part of the solution. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what is your definition of sexual harassment? And I want you to think about that, because now I'm going to give you the official government definition. And it says, although the law doesn't prohibit simple teasing, offhand comments, or isolated incidents that are not very serious, harassment is illegal when it is so severe or frequent that it creates a hostile or offensive work environment, or when it results in an adverse employment decision, such as the victim being fired or demoted. This chart comes directly from the source, and you have to ask yourself if all of these items listed constitute that government definition of sexual harassment. Because if not all of them do, then that 97% number that was the big issue is maybe not as valid as we may think. But if you're going back to that double standard I had about Cuomo, then by definition, that woman who was joking has been sexually harassed. So what I mean to say is you cannot pick and choose when you want to validate or invalidate sexual harassment itself. And then this next figure, figure 6, I'm really having a hard time understanding how 97% of this woman in the survey said they had sexual harassment if 95% of women did not report their experiences of sexual harassment. And as I'm scrolling down, it's basically saying the reasons why they didn't report, like they didn't think it was serious enough or didn't think reporting would help. One thing that is really difficult is trying to find accurate data to show these numbers, right? Because the data used is weighted toward the U.S. population, which is how you're getting this 97% number. In another article, too, I found that 77% of women are verbally harassed. And, while it is 77% of the survey, it's not 77% of the American population. And that's just not like it's almost physically impossible to have every single person in the country take a survey, but all of these are weighted toward the population. So going off of a small sample size, they are trying to generalize that sample size into more people. First off, I'm sorry for sounding really monotonic in the last segment. I know it's a very personal issue, and I really didn't want to make jokes or offend anyone in any sort of way. That's not what I'm trying to do here on my podcast. Then I also wanted to chime in because what that survey did is what a lot of networks can do to manipulate you, is when they use these numbers and saying that they represent a population, but it's weighted toward that population. You need to get that down. It is weighted. So a survey taking the opinions of 3 high school students cannot represent an entire high school. So that is one way that the media can use real, like true facts, but use them in a way to skew the audience's mind. And that is something you have to watch out for. And another thing for today, in today's world, right? If you take the 1950s, information could be spread through like the news on radio stations or TVs. Before that, it might have been word of mouth or like billboard advertising. But today, with the click of a smartphone, I sounded like I was 80 right there, but with the click of a smartphone, information can spread like that. And as well as good information can be spread, bad information can be spread just as well. And with this false information, that is why people have, or a reason why people have such different understandings of the same issue. Okay, now for the real bias section. And I want to talk about the idea of kids in cages, which is a very big knack on Donald Trump. But I'm getting this from an AP fact check. This is the Associated Press, which I use for my daily rundowns. The fact is, the reference to the cages is misleading and a matter of Democrats have persistently distorted. Trump used the facilities that were built during the Obama-Biden administration to house children at the border. They are chain-linked encloses inside border facilities where migrants were temporarily housed and separate by age. And the kids in cages itself comes directly from that chain link idea. Now that we have the origins of kids in cages, let's look at 3 different news sources talking about Biden's internment camps or migration facilities. This comes straight from the Washington Post. Mark Weber, a spokesman for the Department of Health and Human Services, the agency that oversees services for migrant children, said the Biden administration is moving away from the law-enforced focused approach of Trump's administration to one which child welfare is more centric. At the 66-acre site, groups of beige trailers encircle a giant white dining tent, a soccer field, and a basketball court. There is a bright blue hospital tent with white bunk beds inside. A legal services trailer has the Spanish word bienvenidos, or welcome, on the banner of its roof. There are trailers for classrooms, a barbershop, a hair salon, period. The facility has its own ambulance and fire trucks, as well as their own water supply. The HHS has 13,200 beds for children, having exploded in growth in the past 4 years, adding more than 80 facilities for a total of about 200. Weber said the facilities received a bad rap under the Trump administration because many people associated them with detention centers run by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. But the children always received good care, and that never wavered between administrations. Now, coming from the right, we have a Fox News, and this is from a clip on the show The Ingram Angle. The Biden administration, the mainstream media, and immigration advocates are lying to the American people about the extent of the border crisis, Fox News host Laura Ingraham said Monday, which was the 22nd. The entire situation is blown up with so many people coming, and that Border Patrol is overwhelmed and facilities are overflowing and unsanitary, said the Ingram Angle host. Failing to report the simple facts about what lax border enforcement means, the media is complicit in the creation of this crisis, she added. They demonetized Trump for years on immigration with woefully biased and inaccurate reporting, and now they are trying to save their own reputations by pressing the Biden administration for access to migrant holding facilities. In that regard, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki Sorry, now I know it's pronounced Psaki. Recent statement that the White House is committed to transparency is a total and complete lie, according to Ingram. And then lastly, we have the Central, and I got this from the Associated Press, and right here they're talking about how the media is allowed to see these so-called camps and facilities. So let's jump right into it. Border agencies under Trump allowed limited media tours of both Homeland Security and Health and Human Services facilities. Several of those visits revealed troubling conditions inside, including the detention of a large number of children as young as 5 separated from their parents. Under Biden, the agencies have also denied full access to nonprofit lawyers who conduct oversight of facilities where children are detained. Those oversight visits occur under a federal court settlement. When lawyers this month visited the Border Patrol facility at Donna, where thousands of children are now detained, agents refused to let them inside, and the Justice Department says they were not entitled to gain access. The lawyers were forced to interview children outside. The Justice Department declined to comment. There was also photos of this, and I will show this in a second. And then toward the bottom, it says, meanwhile, the administration is seeing emergency facilities for migrant children approach capacity almost as quickly as it can open them. The downtown Dallas Convention Center has 1,500 teenagers less than a week after opening, and it is expected to take in 500 more teens Monday, according to HHS. Its current capacity is 2,300 people. So now that you have all 3 of these points of view out there, you can either take what you want from here or do more of your own research, because I can assure you there are so many more websites out there that you can find, a left and right bias, a central kind of point of view, or any other thing like that. So I know the bias segment is supposed to show you how the media manipulates you, but here I kind of just gave examples showing the different sides, because the bias used here, it is so deeply rooted into what they're preaching on their website, to where I can't talk about that for such little time. So if you want to learn more about their bias, you have to just watch Fox News. You have to just take a look at other Washington Post articles, because their bias is almost internal rather than something you can nitpick at. I am here with my first question and answer segment, and what I'm going to do here is try to do this all in like one take, because I've thrown so much like information and quotes for you guys, and I'd rather kind of just answer this one like off the top of my head. All of these questions come from my Instagram poll, and I put that up every Monday. So let's jump right into it. First question I have is, should there be a breakwall in Long Beach? Like I said, I don't want to do too much research. I don't know too much about a breakwall or breakwater. But I don't think, like, when I've gone to, Belmont Shore or the Bay, I don't think the waves on the other side, because I don't really go to, like, Long Beach itself, but the waves on the other side are that big, so a breakwater would be fine. Like, it wouldn't be washed away. Like, it's not like the Wedge or someplace like that. But, again, I don't know too much about the subject. I would probably say we should, because it does help agriculturally in some way. Don't quote me on that, though. I could be way off. But yeah, that would be my answer. The next one is, should the minimum wage be raised? And again, this one is depending on your point of view. I guess if I were to answer this off the top of my head, I kind of think of it as, my parents, back then the minimum wage was way less than what it is today, yet like the value of stuff hasn't changed. So for example, if everyone started making like $30 on minimum wage, it's not like all the other jobs would change. The jobs would change based off of that minimum wage. So for example, if I make 20 an hour and the minimum wage got bumped up to 20, instead of me making 20 an hour, it's like a ratio, right? So if the minimum wage right now is it's somewhere like in the 12 or 13, so it's like 13 to 20, then that ratio would now go from like 20 to, I don't know, like 28 or something, right? So to me, the minimum wage like the idea sounds fine, but I think in the long run, it's just going to be an increase in price to where gas prices may go up to like $5 a gallon, or freaking Disney passes. Those are already like $1,000. It's probably gonna be like 3,000. So I guess that would be my answer for the minimum wage. But I know there's multiple ways to look at that. Next is, and this is probably my favorite question. What would be your proposal? What would be your proposal to fixing the news, being that CNN and Fox are so biased? So what I think the Americans or the public needs to do is do more research, because they can throw at you these numbers and throw at you this like information, but if you don't like look into it, then you're only going to believe what they want you to believe. If they, and that's what I do like to do here on Nothing with the News, is just give you guys facts and let you make up your opinions. But when they do a talk show, it kind of makes you want to listen. And then another thing we need to do as well, and I talked about this a lot in my research paper, is take the other side's point of view. For example, I'm a big Angels fan, if you couldn't tell. But if I see like a Dodgers post, why would I like want to read it? I would kind of just scroll through it without thinking about it. But since it's the other side's point of view, same thing in politics. If you are a hardcore leftist, but you see the right and just ignore it, you only want to see what you want to believe, that is why we have this divide. Same thing goes the other way. So I think you need to see both sides of the story instead of just focusing your narrative on one side. And then in terms of like, I guess if the question was more about fixing news itself, it's just got to be more fact reporting and less of the opinion talk show articles. I know it's hard because these news stations try to fill a 24-hour kind of just like content, but I think news now is becoming more of a money grab, and they're trying to appeal toward an audience than actually reporting the news how it should be. And I to be honest, if the public got enough support, I think if there was a station that was so down the middle, people would want to watch that station rather than the biased ones we have right now. So that would be my answer. And the last question I have, smash or pass AOC? So I'm a gentleman.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now. Stop the cap.
First date or something. So I'm not going to tell you if I would smash or pass, but I will say, maybe take the Congresswoman. I would go drive her around somewhere. Maybe take her to a steakhouse for dinner. I think in the car ride would be bump into some Luke Combs or some Taylor Swift. Something. You got to get to know me a little bit. I'm a gentleman though. Just calm. I would most likely pay. Steakhouse. Maybe go watch the stars in my beautiful Mazda 6.
What did he say?
Take her home. I'm also, if anything happened, I'm a minor, so she would be arrested. But yeah, so I think we would have a good time. I guess if you were asking me would I take her on a date or not, if I had a chance, maybe I would. But I guess that's it for this question and answer segment. Now you get to hear about a left and right-leaning perspective on the idea of cancel culture, and what you're going to find out is we may not be so different after all. So I have Matt and Daniel on from the show, just like last week, because none of you guys wanted to be on it, so that's your loss, not mine. But we'll get into it. And the reason why I put this after the question and answer is not normally going to be like that. It's just because it ran really long, and I didn't want to bore you with this toward the middle and miss the question and answer. I would rather, if you guys wanted to click off, you can click off at the end. But yeah, no, that was more of my thought process. But yeah, let's hear this debate. All right, I am with Matt and Daniel, the same as last week, since none of y'all wanted to be on. And we're going to be talking about cancel culture. We're going to take this as a take-turn discussion, almost like the Socratic seminars you've had. So let's get started. I'm going to go to Daniel first. And Daniel, define cancel culture in your own words. You don't have to go on that tangent you went on last time.
It's basically when the internet community collectively decides to destroy somebody's career over, okay, I don't want to say it like that. It's more like when a celebrity or a person of influence does something wrong, the internet community, usually Twitter, always tries to bring it to light.
Honestly, like what Daniel said was spot on what I was going to say. The only difference being it's what people decide is wrong. It's not what actually is wrong, it's what they objectively feel is wrong. Sometimes, or I would say most times, actually, it is the wrong thing. If it's blatantly racist or homophobic or something, then that's wrong. But most times, it's what they believe is wrong.
So here we go. Here we go with a list of things, and I'm curious to see what the answers are. So the first thing is food brands: Lando Lakes, Aunt Jemima, and Uncle Ben. They've been canceled. Is this justified or not? And Daniel, you're up first.
Honestly, it just depends on the history. It depends on the perspective, but like I know that like Aunt Jemima and like Uncle Ben were like based off of like slaves. Um, but I know I should have like looked into it a little more. But I know Aunt Jemima was like a person who used to be a slave, but she came out of slavery and she started her own business, and it was like Aunt Jemima. And then people like today in our society were like, oh, like that's racist because she's a slave, and like it's promoting like a traditional like slave house, not housewife, like a house servant or whatever.
And I'm gonna go to Matt, but I think I already know what his answer is gonna be, and it's gonna be I agree with Daniel. So go ahead.
Yeah, pretty much something along those lines. I do know the Aunt Jemima, she was a slave, like Daniel said. Her name was Nancy Green, and the syrup recipe, it wasn't hers. They just used her for branding purposes, essentially. So I think they should have contacted her family, see if that's something they were interested in, instead of letting the internet community make the decision, essentially. And then Uncle Ben's, he was a rice company, I believe.
Yes, yes.
And I believe I think his name was Frank Brown. That was it. That was his name. So I mean, same thing. Talk to the family. If they want to continue branding, then like good for them. If they don't, because of the slavery background, then good on them as well. Really should just be their decision. So I don't really have an opinion on that.
All right. And then I think the next one too is gonna be very similar. Is the Redskins and the Indians, the baseball and football team. Matt, you can go first, but if your answer is the same, I assume Daniel's answer will be the same, and we could just speed through this one.
Indians, I personally don't have a problem with that. Like, I don't find how that's problematic. I don't think it should be canceled. Redskins, however, is historically used as a derogatory term. So them switching their name to the Washington football team, I think that's fine.
And then
I agree with the second half. I think the former name of the what was the Washingtons. Is that what they changed it to?
They changed to the football team. They don't have a name right now. They didn't really get creative with that one.
I feel like they definitely needed to change that because, like Matt said, it was such like a it was used as a derogatory term, and for many years, it was like normalized in pop culture, like back in the 1900s, and I feel like I'm glad that people realize the like how problematic it was that we just had like a football team like named that term. The logo and everything was so like blatantly racist too. But like for us it was just so normalized for so long and we never like spoke up and said that it was wrong in any way. So I'm glad that finally happened. I don't see a problem with them changing that. And I don't know why people are still mad about that. Um the Indians thing, I mean, I am not qualified to answer that because I'm not Native American, but I know like some people who are offended by like the term like Indian.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I don't see a problem with that. If they want to change it, which I think they are going to change it, then
Yeah, they are. I believe they are changing it. All right, now we're gonna go into more. I think this is a very interesting idea, and this one's maybe more debatable. Is like Mr. Potato Head. Daniel, you laugh, so you're up.
Okay, I feel like they should have just created a new character that was just gender neutral in a sense. I don't feel like there's absolutely nothing wrong with having like a Mr. and a Mrs. Potato Head. I feel like like I don't know, like if you want it to be more inclusive, you could totally just create like a new line of products or like a new character that's just like Potato Head or like that has like a gender neutral name. They could be like non-binary or something. You don't need to change like an old character that has nothing like there's nothing problematic about Mr. Potato Head. He wasn't like racist. It wasn't like influenced by anything. Like, you know, like there was no like problematic background with there. It was just like the gender pronoun, and there's nothing wrong with like a cisgender like pronoun, you know.
All right, Matt, you're up.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Man, you guys
Honestly,
are really lame. I was this is the most civil discussion I've ever heard. All right,
yeah,
and then okay, then we'll go with again, and this is more people now. Morgan Wallen, and are you guys familiar with him?
yeah.
I want to say no. I had no idea who he was until like the whole scandal thing happened.
Okay, he's a country singer, and yeah,
That's
if you haven't
wild.
seen the video, so
I saw the video.
I
okay,
saw the video
so
as well.
so what would your response be?
In my opinion, using the N word, never a time to use it based on history. There's just no good reason to use it. There's no reason to use it, period. Um, he was drunk. I saw the video. I know he was drunk. He used it derogatorily. He needed to apologize. I believe he did. I'm almost confident he did. Um, and I know that people tried to cancel him, but his listeners and the people that listen to his music, I really don't think they cared because they knew he was drunk. The circumstances, he never should have gotten that position. He was wrong to say it. So canceling him for that, it's understandable, but at the same time, circumstances were different.
All right, Daniel, any thoughts?
I don't really think that, you know, the circumstances are valid. Like I can't just, I don't know, like if I'm drunk, I don't think me being drunk is an excuse for me to just be like racist like that.
It's
Cuz I
not,
feel like
no.
the way he said it was so natural. Like it sounded like he obviously has used it before, and like it sounded like he used it regularly. Like you said, he was drunk, I guess, so it might have been a lot easier. But still, I don't know. Like even I don't say it. Like I don't resort. I don't know. I just feel like him being drunk shouldn't be an excuse, and I think he deserved to be canceled for that. But it's more of, I know it's kind of off topic, but when there's like videos that come to light of like YouTubers back in like 2009, like saying the N word and stuff, like Jeffree Star or whatever, that he's problematic in many ways. But in him particularly, people like last year came up with videos of like Jeffree Star saying the N word and stuff, and I feel like back then it was messed up, but that was like over 10 years ago, you know? So like he can change as a person in that time.
All right, well, okay, I have a couple
Yeah.
points. One, did you guys know that I think Morgan Wallen's what's it called, revenue like skyrocketed after he said it because he got a lot of media attention. So like even though he was canceled, he didn't like what's it called?
It didn't hurt him at
Yeah, it
all.
didn't hurt him at all. Now, I have a couple points. One, I'll circle back to that thing where you said earlier in life, but two, you guys know the story of Myers Leonard, the NBA player.
I don't.
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna
do.
look it up, but
Okay, so anyway, he said the K slur. It's essentially like if the N word for Jewish people. It's just not a good word for to describe it, a Jew. But what he's done is his career is kind of plummeted. He said it, I think, like 2 weeks ago. And
Mhm.
so, like, what is the difference between Morgan Wallen saying it and Myers Leonard saying a slur?
in my head, I don't see there's a difference. I don't see it as a difference whatsoever. I mean, but it's more obvious as to why like his career like plummeted while Morgan Wallen was seemed as like okay, I guess, because I feel like a lot of Morgan Wallen's fans are people who like say the N word themselves.
Matt, anything you'd like to add, and then I'll have one or two final questions.
All right. Yeah. I feel like obviously I know you didn't intend it, but I feel like saying that a lot of Morgan Wallen's fans, obviously, or not obviously, but I don't personally listen to his music because I'm sorry, Tyler, I'm not a country fan. But that's kind of a mass generalization, and I'm sure there are definitely fans that do, but at the same time, you know what I mean? So I feel like with Myers Leonard, I'm sure Tyler, you know this, but Myers Leonard, he's been problematic in the NBA because he was one of the first people with Jonathan Isaac to stand during the national anthem instead of kneeling because what was the reason? It was because he had family in the military, so he got a lot of backlash for that. But at the same time, he came from, I think it was his dad and two of his brothers, if I'm not mistaken. They were both military people, so that's why he chose to make that decision. But I do agree with Daniel. There's not a lot of difference between saying the N word and saying the K word, especially he used it in a derogatory context. I I think I saw the like clip in the stream. It just kind of flowed right off.
So the last two questions, I'll circle back to what Daniel said. Should you be canceled for something you said earlier in your life? And you gave the Jeffree Star example. But like, and is there like a time period to where like it's acceptable, like age of a person, or like just time, like when it was acceptable? For example, like if I said something when I was 12, is it as bad as if someone said something 6 years ago when they were 24?
Your brain wasn't as developed as it is now, so of course you're gonna be saying like a lot of things that you didn't mean to say. But if a person's like 24 and like 6 years before that, they're like, I don't know. I feel like it's a big difference. But in a relation, I feel like it's more of an issue of like, or a thing of like, if they come to light about it and like they come clean, and there's like an obvious like change in character, and they understand what they did wrong like legitimately, and if like they actually show to their platform that like that was a genuine mistake in their life and that like they would never do something like that ever again. I feel like that's what makes it okay. Like I don't like when people like are like, oh, you're canceled, like we're gonna ruin your entire career.
All right, and then I think, Matt, I'm gonna give you a slightly different question. It's more of, is it okay? Like, if you say something that wasn't bad on society standards back then, how would that fare today? If you understand my question.
No, personally, I don't believe that's the reason to get canceled, especially if that was society's standard. Depending on what it is and how far back we're going, I think anytime, really anytime after like I don't know, like 1980, 1990s, saying the N word is a good reason to get canceled. Like I said earlier, saying the N word is never okay. It just yeah. And going back to what Daniel said earlier, as like a 12-year-old, it's less of, I'm sure a lot of younger kids, they're not conscious of what they're saying. I know there's a lot of younger kids out there that say things they really don't know what they mean. So that's obviously not a reason to cancel like a young kid who just doesn't know what they're saying. But when you're 24 or something and it's a part of your vocabulary, like a derogatory word, if it's part of your vocabulary, then yeah, it should be canceled.
All right, and then the last question I have, what would be a better solution to cancel cultures instead of just canceling someone? And the first person to answer can go ahead.
I really think that a better solution is just like educating people, because like I said earlier, like people are just so quick to like destroy everyone's futures over like a mistake, you know, or unless it like wasn't a mistake. If they deserve it, then they deserve it, you know. But I feel like um people should take the time to really show that individual like that what they're saying or what they're doing or the company, like it's all about educating, because we have normalized so much as a country.
And then Matt, any last words? I think that's the last thing we have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I'd like to add one more thing, just based on what like Daniel said earlier about like essentially Twitter and the internet determining who gets canceled. You have people out there like Morgan Wallen who say something derogatory, good reason to get canceled. But then you have on the other side of the spectrum, so the Dr. Seuss books, like some of it was 6 books that they canceled. Some of the quotes were, I think one of them was like a he and a she. Like back then, Dr. Seuss was not trying to be problematic using that statement, and maybe that's not acceptable, or it's not objectively um, acceptable by today's standards. But that's not a reason to really cancel them because of that.